Hi, everybody. It's Marsha Casper Cook. Welcome to the show. We have been gone for a while. I actually did take a couple months off to write, and still not finished, which is no shock to me. But anyway, you're at Michigan Avenue Media now, and it's called Writers Talk, and we've got a really big lineup lately. But it should be fun. And so today we're going to talk. Krysten Lindsay Hager's here. And so she's going to tell us a little bit about herself. She does a lot of shows with me. We have fun. And then after she says a little bit about herself, I suppose I should say about myself because I'll add this year. Okay, I've done the podcast for almost, I think it's 18 years at Blog Talk. And then I'm a writer. And I also, well, I do screenplays, and some of my characters are from the screenplays, which is probably what we'll talk a little bit about today. And I'm a podcast host for all these years, and I do love it. And so we're going to have a good time tonight. And anybody that hasn't listened, it's just an off the cuff. So we're not, sometimes we talk about things that aren't planned. It all depends on the show. Here we go. Hi.
Hey, Marsha, glad to be with you.
Oh, yeah, I'm so happy. It's a long summer, but not really. It's a short summer. Actually, we're not done, but I feel like it once it's August.
Oh, I used to hate that though when I was a kid. My birthday would roll around, and then once August, every year in high school, somehow my high school schedule would show up on my birthday, and it just ruined it every day.
Well,
Every
right, because my birthday's in August too. So you have two Leos here. Here we are. Yeah, because we didn't start. I'm from Chicago, so we did not start till after Labor Day.
Mm. Yeah, we always
And
started a little
yeah,
bit before Labor
yeah,
Day.
and now kids start, yeah, they're out a lot earlier than we were. But it's all, I mean, like because you're not in a warm climate either. So I mean, I do like it, and I like that it's light later, you know, and it's like 8 o'clock and it's still light. I really do love that. But there's nothing we can do. They were going to change it, but I don't know if that's happening. But I
Yeah,
would love that. I would really like that. Because for us, and like, when it's where you live and I live, it's 4:30, it's dark.
yes,
And
yeah,
and I think people have more energy and things. I really feel that, and because I'm good with sunshine. I probably
yeah.
shouldn't be living here. because We've had a lot of rain for August. You know,
Yes, there was a lot
you
of
too,
flooding down.
everybody. Oh my God, there's a lot. And people had a lot of damage. So anybody out there with damage, I'm sorry because and when I was a kid, we had flooding in our house a lot. And we had like sewer what was but you never forget that. So I feel so bad for everybody when they're flooding.
Yeah.
And these are not just little floods now. These are big.
Yeah, areas that never flooded before
Yes, and
are
yeah.
flooded.
And so that's why we're here to have a good time. We don't want to think about anything else except having fun. All right, so tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Krysten Lindsay Hager, and I write coming of age novels. I have everything from a couple pop star romance where you get to date your favorite singer. I've got fake dating books, sports romance, a couple hockey, about three hockey romance books, basketball romance, and I'm working on a football romance book.
Yeah.
So I've been having a lot of fun. I've been writing a lot lately. I had a little accident recently, and I've been back to writing up late the last couple nights because I just got so into the story. I just love that when you just get so into the
Yes, right,
character.
right.
And some,
Isn't it tiring sometimes because you're talking for a lot of people. So, because you write with a lot of characters also. So, when it's a lot of work because you're in the scene
right, and
and
you're
you're
feeling
actually there.
everything.
I mean, I am, and I think you do the same.
Yeah, and you're feeling everything that they're feeling.
Yes, yeah, you know, and I know you love writing. I love writing, and the thing is, you know, writers need to write. Which is
Hmm.
one of the reasons why I do this show because instead of talking about marketing, because this is not what writers want to do. Writers really want to write and have a good time with their writing, because as we know, marketing isn't fun. So I think that people out there listening, just write. It takes
Yeah.
too much time to do all these other things. It really does.
And
you know,
also not pressuring yourself. I
right,
remember 'cause if you've listened to
right,
the show before, I almost always bring up George Michael, but he
right.
said when he pushed himself and he felt like the stress from the writer's block, he
Yeah,
made it so much worse. He said if he had just taken like a break and like let up on himself, it probably wouldn't have lasted as long. But it's so important to,
it's
like
a
I
lot
said,
of pressure for them too. Look at when you write a book or I write a book, in back of our minds, you're always thinking, what if they say it's terrible? What if they hate it? You know, and you have good reviews and you go, what if I get a bad review? And then that will ruin everything for all the good reviews. But I always tell people, don't even look at the reviews. I mean, I look at them, but the thing is, we're supposed to be writing and not caring about those things because that does give you writer's block.
Yeah, they always do say don't go look at your reviews. And I always have heard that if you get a bad review or somebody says something negative, go find your favorite book or show or whatever that you absolutely think is flawless. Go look at the bad reviews for it, and you will see that there's nobody who likes there's no
No,
one book that everybody loves.
no, no, that's true. It really, that is a good idea to do because that's the truth. Because, and sometimes I'll have seen something on TV and I go, this is really great. I love it. And then I go and look and I see the bad reviews. I'm going, what? I mean, did you see the same thing I just saw?
Yes, I see that too. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I've really enjoyed something and
Yeah.
they have just smeared it, so
Right. And and that's a bad thing because, it does, stars, even though you don't might people might not think they have, problems. They do because they care too. It's just like a writer. They don't want a bad review of the movie.
well, I always think too, like, I don't know how many times people will talk about some movie and everyone's talking about they love it, and I watch it and I'm thinking, "What?
Yeah, I know.
Did they build it up too much?"
And so let's talk about something that really it's like really important when you're writing. Characters.
Okay.
It matters. And
Yeah.
so tell like a normal day for you when you're writing. I mean, how do you feel about your characters? I mean, do they stay with you if you're not if you're not if you're not writing, are you thinking about them throughout the day? How do you feel about that? I'm always thinking about them.
Yeah, they're always on my mind, and I've noticed, I really connect mostly with, like, music, and so if I'm in the car and a certain song comes on that maybe it's a song I liked it back in the day, or maybe it's a song I never really connected to, but all of a sudden there's something in it that
Right.
connects to what I'm working on. It's like I've almost never heard the song before. I'll, like, if I'm with my husband, I'll make him replay the song, or I'll like make a note on my phone or on a notebook or something like,
That's
okay.
what I do. Right. I make a note because if you think of something and you don't write it down, as a writer, we all know one thing. Then we're going to say, what was I thinking? And it doesn't always come back.
Oh, I hate that when you're falling asleep at night. If I ever
Right.
fall asleep,
Right.
I'm not
Yes,
going to
this
get
is
up.
true.
I will not remember. Like, you have to get up
I know. Well,
because
I
you're
try to
thinking,
keep a pen and paper because that is the truth. And it's so annoying because I know in the morning I won't even and I might not remember that I even thought of something
mhm.
because you got to write it right at that moment.
Yeah, yeah,
And
you do.
yeah,
You have to
and that's
capture.
what they say, carry a little book. Because I
Hmm.
think I was listening to some of my older shows and some people were talking about something, when you're listening to people's conversations, if you're in a restaurant or something, you're not supposed to listen, but we all do. So, so when you're listening and they say something, it's like, oh, I got to use that line somewhere.
Hmm.
It's someday. Doesn't have to be with what you're writing now, but it can be later because
Yeah,
you just want to remember what they said because that's what writers do. We get so many ideas from so many places. Our
yeah,
mind is like crowded sometimes with all of
yeah.
this.
We collect.
Yes, yes, we do. I have little notes, and then sometimes I kind of write better when I'm using a yellow notepad, the legal pad, because
Mhm.
I just let myself write. I don't think it goes. It just flows better. And then I go back and sometimes I use it and sometimes I don't, but I use it a lot though, because I I'm at a certain part that, I just for me, I don't think I might have come up with it if I'm sitting at a computer. Something happens to me when I'm just writing on paper. I go faster, I think,
It's
my
funny.
brain.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because when I was little, even before I knew how to write, when my dad would have conferences where he would go away at least once a year for these conferences, and when he'd come back, he'd have these like folios that they would give them with a legal patent, and he'd always like rip out his and give it to me with the cute pen. And even
Yeah,
though I didn't know how to write, I would scribble in it. And then as I got
yeah,
older, when he'd give it to me, I'd actually write. And I always wrote best in those. And even now, I do like to write on paper. Sometimes I have like the cute little notebooks, with like the
yeah,
cute
yeah, yeah.
folder. But yeah, I like writing on paper too, like to get the thoughts out. And
Because I
I
think it just flows. It just comes out of me. It just flows. And I may not use it, but it really helps me focus.
yeah, I've heard you edit better if you write on paper because when you type it, it looks so nice. You hate to like lose words. So you're more,
Exactly, exactly, right. Unless
yeah,
you're really like a fabulous typist and goes zip, zip, zip. I'm not that person.
yeah. You don't want to like delete a big block of text. But if
Right.
it's a notebook and you haven't
Right.
put it in yet, you might be like, I don't know. You're more
Yeah, yeah,
likely to edit better.
yeah. And so, I mean, and the other thing is like when I'm looking for names, so I think people, the listeners should know about it's not so easy to come out with a name, for me at least. I come up with it, and then once I do, I have a really hard time changing it.
Yeah. Oh,
I've
yes. Oh,
tried.
I cannot stand when someone will say to me like, "Oh, I picked this baby name," and it's like, "No, please, no. That's my son's name.
Right,
You're not gonna like what I'm gonna be doing with this I remember
right,
once,
right.
somebody in the family, they had 2 names they were picking, and I was like, "Oh, please don't, please, please don't. What am I gonna do?" And, thankfully, they took the other name because I thought, "Oh, geez." And they were the type that would say, because I remember somebody made a comment to someone once, well, maybe about changing the name. I'm thinking, because if you try to change the name as a writer to your main character, you will slip up.
I know. And that is what happens, and because Robin Surface from Fidelity, who does my publishing, what I seem to do a lot of times, if I change a name of a book, let's say, and even in this last one that I did, Dinner at the Deli, it was from a screenplay, Hello Deli. So I referred to it and I catch myself because I know it's not the name. It's not Hello Deli, but that's how I still think of it. That was a
Mm.
screenplay name.
Mm-hmm.
And I never intended it to be Dinner at the Deli, and that's what happened. It just turned out that way. Because sometimes things just turn out where it's not, I'm not a plotter. I most of my guests are not either that come on the show. They just kind of write and whatever happens. It's good if people can plot, but I can't stay in a plot. What about you?
Yeah, I feel like the fun part for me is figuring out the story as I go. I mean, it's more of a struggle, but
Yeah,
if I
it
have
is a
some
struggle. Yeah,
idea
yeah,
of what's gonna happen, it's almost like it feels like the book has been written and I don't have like the gas in the tank to keep going with it. I don't get the
right,
excitement. I'd rather be working in a book and then all of a sudden be like, oh, wait a minute, no, this is what should happen, and like make a
right.
big change, because that will keep me more invested in the story. It makes me want to go back to, writing it. Once I kind of have it figured out, it's kind of like, it's not as interesting to me.
Right, and the newer book that I'm writing right now, it's called Cup of Joy. It's about, well, it started out to be like just a coffee house with people from my other Warrington collection. So I added some new people, but then while I'm doing it, all of a sudden this character came in and I went, "Oh my God, this is who Leo should be falling for." And Leo wasn't even in the book. So then I had to go,
Mhm.
"Oh my God," because I never finished when I did my Gracie and Leo series. They never got together. And then I wanted to put them together, but it never worked. And so now all of a sudden when I'm writing it, what is he doing here? I mean, why is he in this book? But now he is. So now I had to change a lot because then I had to rework like how I was trying to do it because now he's finding somebody that I was adding as a new character, but there he popped up. He was perfect for her, which hopefully I don't know if he will be or not. That's what I think. But now he's in it. That's what happens. They pop up.
Yeah, well, with the book that I'm writing right now, I went back and forth on the love interest. I don't know how many times. And then finally I was like, okay, because I'd written a lot one way, and then all of a sudden I was like, no, I think, and then when
I
I
know.
really looked at what I had, I was like, no, this is the connection. And the funny
Yeah.
thing is in the beginning, I had somebody completely different meant for her. It wasn't working out. Then I had somebody else that wasn't working out. So this is like guy number 4 for
I
her.
know. It's
Where
like,
it's like,
who's
oh,
behind the door? Who's behind the door? Right.
which is weird. I don't
But you
normally
don't
think
know
that.
because it's just, and that's for me, I agree with you, the fun. And then when that happens, like I went, oh, this is good. And you didn't know why you didn't think of it before, but you just didn't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. So I think sometimes people think, oh, you just sit down and that whole book comes right out. And like
Well, well, like
like you're ordering something. Okay, I'll have a pizza and it all comes out. No, it doesn't.
well, like you think you know who they're gonna, end up
Yeah.
with. They have their own ideas, and
Yes,
sometimes
they
like
do.
you can't force the chemistry.
No. Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, this is the way to go.
See, but a lot of times now I'm thinking about it like in the way of like a soap opera kind of because I always thought like every scene had to have, a certain purpose. But then when I think of it, let's say I watch soap operas because I love to watch them. I've been watching them forever. And then all of a sudden somebody appears and everything changes, which is what happens in a book too, to me, And so I think, those are the things that if it's you add characters because I at first when I was writing, I just did a story like even when I started with screenplays, it was just one straight story. But then when I did the Warrington collection, every time I thought I was finished, I wasn't. So that's why I
Mm.
kind of call it like a soap opera because I did not intend for it to go on this long. And even in this new book, now it'll probably have to be part of the Warrington collection, I think. I wasn't thinking about that.
Well, it's funny you say that because in my book, Falling for a Star in the City, it's technically a hockey romance. There's a little bit of a slight love triangle with her ex-boyfriend who's just gotten a record contract to be a pop star. Well, when I wrote the first draft of the book, there was no hockey player in it. There was a guy, but there was no hockey player. And then I brought it in because I'd moved back to the United States from Europe, and I joined this writing group. And I don't even remember why I decided to put the hockey player in it. I guess because I was working with my own experiences where she's interning at this TV station for a sportscaster. And I guess because I was interviewing NFL players, that's why, or not, well, NFL players, but also NHL players as well. And I guess that's why I brought the NHL player in. I don't know. But because originally Victor was professional. Now, because I did so much with professional hockey and professional football, I decided to write college to give myself some distance.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I guess that's how that started. And I remember I took it to the group, and I was just starting with putting him in the story. And this one guy, Bernie, who I really respected his writing, he's since passed. He said, "Wow," he says, like a Russian romance. He's like, I really like this character. Like, keep
Yeah.
going with this. And everyone was like, yeah, I like what he brings out in her. And I was like, wait, he's not supposed to be the love interest. And they're like, no, 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 keep going. Well,
Right.
okay.
Okay.
So I told my mom, like, they really like Victor. And she's like, well, they don't know who Victor is, kind of a little bit based on. She's like, you can't, there's no way you could do that. She's like, who like the original guy is. I'm like, I'm going to have to rework it where the original guy that gave me the idea of, to write this. I'm like, I have to change it because no, he's
Right.
not anybody's like good idea of a love interest. I mean, it has since been a little bit, PR renovated, and so she's like, yeah, you're gonna have to change. So I had to do some fancy footwork to think of Victor in a different light so I could write it that way. But I was surprised. I had no intention of writing a hockey romance. In fact, if you had said to me back in the day when I was interviewing those guys, like one day you're gonna write it, I'd be like, no, I'm not.
No.
There is no way I'll be doing that. No.
See,
Um,
that's what happens, so and that is what the fun of it is, and, you know, I think that most of us probably think too much about things because the best advice I could give people is not exactly the advice that I take because I think what you're supposed to do is just go straight through and write the story, which I tell people to do. But I don't really follow that because if like I'm on the fourth chapter and I think I did something where I need to put somebody in and it's going to change everything, I have to go back and fix it because I don't like to fix it after. I just have to once I get to like maybe, I don't know, 100 pages, let's just say, then I pretty much know where exactly what I'm going, but I don't and until I get to further on. So, but I have to know, so I have to keep going back to make sure I don't forget a detail that I might need to move forward.
yeah, well, sometimes I will find like I do a lot of research to make sure that I've got everything right. And
Yeah,
every once in a while, I will find that, oh, like college sports does this differently than professional. And so then I got to go back and change some things because it's like, oh,
yeah,
well, the world that I knew is different than the world that I put them in.
yeah, right.
So I've had to, go back and change some stuff. Or sometimes I'll write something and I'll realize I got too close to the truth on something. Like I wrote a scene with something that happened with one of the hockey players, and somebody who read it before it came out was like, "How did you know about that?" And I kind of looked, and she's like, "That was super top secret. How did you know that?" He and his ex went through that. And I was like, I didn't. She's
Yeah,
like,
right. I
"If you
know.
put that in the book, everyone is going to think you did know. And there are going to be some questions." And I was like, okay, so I'm deleting that scene.
Right, yeah. But, that's the other thing, people are very, very fussy now. And if you do something that they don't like in a book or they think you should have done it differently, they add that in a review, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's a story.
Yeah. And
They'll go
people,
like, I don't like what this one did. This is like fiction.
yeah,
You've made
people
it up.
will say things, and I've seen you're not supposed to respond. And my
I
publisher
know.
told me
Right.
don't
I know.
respond to
Yeah.
reviewers, but sometimes people will say, "Oh no, that's not right," or whatever, and it's like, well, no, yes, that's the experience, or that somebody mentioned something about something legally once, and I was like, no, that definitely is.
Right.
So people will write things in reviews that aren't real, and they also bring their own experiences because sometimes you will see things in a review that aren't in your book. And it's like, wait, did they? Sometimes people will get books confused because every once in a while I heard a reviewer say, "Oh, I reviewed the wrong book" or whatever. But sometimes they just bring their own experiences so much that
Yeah.
they see things. Like you'll hear pastors talk about someone will come to them after a church service and think, "Oh my gosh, your sermon today on blah 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 was so much," and then they'll smile and say, "Oh, thank you," and then they'll say, "That's not what I preached on at all." You hear
Yeah.
that so
Right.
often.
Right. Right. Yeah.
People
See,
bring their
that's
own.
the thing. Because people, well, I know I've told this many times before, but I'll tell it again. I wrote a book to life, which is on Holocaust survivor. Okay. And it was her entire story. We made up nothing. It was her story. She was a young girl and we went right through it. And it was hard. It was painstaking. It was really a lot. It was tough to do. But I got a review where they go, the, the writer did not know anything about what happened then. And then I'm thinking, like, I'm the writer, but this is her story,
Right.
not mine. It's a nonfiction. And then I just read it the other night because I was putting my book on Kindle Unlimited, and I looked at something, what they said, and I'm thinking, like, what? They said they didn't like a part. I remember this now, and before they didn't like the part where she had a child and the child was old enough to go to her second marriage, and she was mad that they didn't bring the child there. So, I mean, this real truth, okay? It wasn't like I wrote it as the person made a choice. That was what happened.
Yeah.
And so they're talking, so they don't like her for that. But I mean, that's not what a review's supposed to be.
Yes, I have a friend who writes memoirs, and I have seen people make personal attacks on how she's like lived her life. and the choices she's made in reviews. And I'm thinking it's a memoir.
Yeah,
Like,
I guess they don't when you're especially in this case, it wasn't my story even, and so but I'm repeating, and they said I didn't know enough about the subject. And I'm thinking like,
you
are
lived
you
it.
kidding me? Because she was in the Holocaust. She's gone now, but I mean, that was her experience. She was
Right.
12 years old. She was young. And that's her experience. But it's like of course I don't know it. I know what she told me. And in
Right.
Holocaust survivor stories, and there's lots of them out there, it's everyone has their own story, but they have similarities. But it's
Right.
what happened to them.
Right. And everyone, experiences things differently. And especially too, when you look back on something,
Yeah.
sometimes, especially for her being a child with like all the
Yeah.
trauma and everything,
Very
that was
different.
her experience. And that's how she experienced it. And people
Right, and you
feel the
wanna
need to,
write back to people, but there's no room actually. It says, sometimes you could leave a comment, but I think once the person doesn't ever see it, they
yeah.
never go back. Like,
I
I think
think on
that's the
Goodreads
thing,
you're not allowed to.
because
Because
you want to.
I have seen some crazy comments from people saying things about, oh, just horrible experiences that writers have written about, like, like sexual assault and things like that. And people are like, oh, that was so unrealistic. And I've seen authors write back saying that was my experience.
I
And
know
I'm,
that.
oh
See,
my
that's
goodness.
what's yeah, see, that's the thing. And today, on I think it was a TikTok that I know somebody was on there. She's been on my show a lot of times. She's a really nice person. And she was having a live, I don't know if it's a live feed from Facebook or what, and she was saying, why are people so mean to each other?
Yeah.
She goes, "What is going on here?" Because I am not involved in anything like that on any of my pages, but there's a big problem out there that people just think now they can say whatever they want and hurt people.
Yeah, when I went to this media training thing back in the day, somebody said if somebody says something like on your page, and I
Yeah,
won't use the words she used, I'll just say it's the equivalent of them coming into your living room and using the floor as their own personal bathroom.
yeah, okay, I get
And
it,
they
yeah.
said you have the
Okay.
choice. Do you want to delete it, like cleaning it
Yeah.
off the living room floor,
Ugh.
or what? And I'm thinking to myself,
Right.
there are some people, like I've seen singers and stuff who, are, and there are people that will try to reason with a person and get them on their side. But I've learned a long time ago, don't waste your energy on that. There's an
That
episode
right.
of Parks
That
and
is a waste. Yes, it
yeah,
is.
there's an episode of Parks and Recs where the main character, I think her name is Leslie on the show. It's been a while, where she is trying to convince this one voter guy who, I think he was in a group or something, and she was like looking through that double-sided mirror or something. She knew that he didn't care for her, and she was convicted she was going to win this guy over. So they go on this bowling thing. She gets him food. She spends her whole time with him, just desperate to get this man's vote. And in the end, he never planned to vote for her. He doesn't care for her. In fact, he calls her a nasty name. And I think so often we do that with people. And I think back to times when I could tell somebody wasn't really like, crazy
Yeah,
about me, or, like I meet them, and they, sometimes when people hear like what you do, like for me, sometimes when I hear journalists, they'd be like, ugh, or, even just write it, whatever it is. And I could tell, and I thought, why did I spend so much time trying
yeah,
to like get that person to like you or to see a certain side of you? I could have spent that time, meeting nice people, getting to make friends with somebody. And
right.
every time I would do like book signings, there'd always be someone, there's always someone that comes up to you and they've got a little like burr in their backside. They're
Yeah,
always, and they spend so much time with you, and they'll actually keep other people from coming up to talk to you because they won't go away.
yeah.
There was
And
one guy,
I really don't know. That's one of the things that has happened to people now.
yeah, well, because everybody wants to be heard. Everybody is like yelling out into the void. And
Yes.
but people are no longer polite about it. They
No,
feel
no.
like entitled.
And
And
that's what this woman was saying. What is wrong with everybody? Why are you all doing this to each other?
yeah, I've seen
Because
some
it
people.
really, and a lot of people, unfortunately, life, you meet people along the way. Now, like I was on the internet for 20 years. And a lot of the people that were on there, they're not there anymore. They're just gone, you know? So, and I think people should realize that in a year, 6 months, 5 months, 2 years, a lot of these people might not ever be there again. So why bother? It's not
Yeah.
gonna help anybody. So why get in an argument online?
Yeah. I mean, there's always some
You don't
drama
even know the
in the
person.
world. Yeah, there's always people mad at something or whatever, and you can't
Yeah.
I mean, you can't try to make people happy, and I just try to stay out of it because it just deletes your energy. It's just
Right, and I think
it
writers, it's very hard because people, if you write them a bad review that really isn't justified, it just says some other things. A lot of people, unfortunately, they stop writing then.
mm.
And I've had that experience with a lot of people I know that they didn't like some of the reviews that they got, and then they quit writing, and they were actually good writers.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
And it's
There
sad.
Yeah.
And there are also a lot of people out there that say, I just have a new book and I'm not selling that much. But I think what they need to hear is a lot of writers don't sell a lot. They just don't, and it doesn't mean the work is not good. It just means you got to keep going. And the more books you write, the more people you meet and the more, you can really get better. Even if, any author, they start out one way. And most of us, that any book we ever read, that we wrote, we could rewrite it. I could rewrite any book that I did
Oh,
and
yeah,
be happier. But you can't do that. You're supposed to write the book and then say goodbye.
and that's very hard to do because you get
It
so attached
is,
to your
but you have
characters.
to. Yes, you have to, because otherwise you're not going to be writing. And there's a lot of people out there that, they just make a lot of decisions for themselves and they don't know. So I've always said, if they need help, and I know a lot of writers that will help other people. I'm not going to charge them. They ask me a question, I'll answer it. So before you make all these bad decisions, check with people that might be able to help you. I mean, I was an agent, so I do know a lot of different things. I mean, over the years, I've done a lot of different things, and I could send them places that could help them and keep them writing and maybe make a better story and help them. So don't ask people that you don't even know because it might not be a good experience, and then you'll be done writing.
Yeah, and you have to know too, if you're on the other side, when people ask you, sometimes they know what they want to hear. It
Yeah,
can really
yeah,
waste your time, and I found that so many times where I wasted time with somebody who they knew what they wanted to do, they just wanted me to reinforce it, and when I went a different direction, and it was just such a waste. I have such limited time for things now. I
right.
just the time, maybe because of my accident too. Timing's more to me now because I don't have, an unlimited well of, energy and everything from all that. And so it's just like, I have to, be more intentional. And then,
Yeah,
sometimes you have people taking advantage. I've had that with a few authors that really
yeah,
overstep
yeah.
some bounds. And it's like, hey, wait, like, do you realize what you're
Y
asking?
y Yeah, yeah. But it does take a lot of energy to do all this. I mean, it does. This is not
Well,
easy. There's a
the,
lot to writing, and there's a lot to marketing and publishing and everything. But I do see more groups now for indie authors because there's a lot of indie authors, and I haven't tried anymore to go to the top pub, because I did that for clients and it didn't work. It's like it takes 3 years. So
well,
nobody wants to wait 3
different
years.
there's different mindsets for
Yeah.
writing and doing other things. And
Yeah.
I can't focus on the other stuff when I'm working on a book. Like when I got to get into that world, whether it's like a
Yeah.
small town, whether
Right,
it's a
right.
character
Yeah.
that's like with Summer Possibility, she thinks she's going to this writing conference. She thinks that she's on her way to become a published author, even though she just, graduated high school. She got waitlisted to all the colleges she wanted to go to, but she's like, oh, it doesn't matter. This writing program is it's going to help me get into the
Yeah.
college I want to. And then she finds out on the first day that the main guy, the author who looks at her stuff, doesn't think she's ready. And it's like
Yeah.
someone burst her balloon. So that's when she ends up in the beachside town with her aunt, licking her wounds because she's like, well, that's the only thing I thought I could do. And she doesn't realize that there is, people have different opinions on stuff, and that, your life is never completely over when, you get a rejection of any sort. And
And
so
that would be a Hallmark movie. Yes.
exactly. And then, so she's in this little cute little beach town trying to figure out her next step. Where's she going to school? And she meets a hockey player who's down on his luck with injuries. Is he going to be able to continue playing? Goes to this overseas thing. What's going to happen? Can they have
Yeah.
a long distance relationship? That kind of thing. And so,
Mhm.
I got to get in that world. I don't have, time to do all these other things. I got to, focus on my fake hockey boyfriend.
Well, here's something that sometimes people want to talk about. All right, so the characteristics of a character. It's so important that you really have to keep, are their eyes blue? Do they do, what do they eat? If you're writing a series, and even when you're writing the whole book, because you forget, people don't realize when we're writing a book, we're writing it. But then sometimes we don't actually remember every single thing that we wrote because we were on to the next thing. So you don't, somebody might say it was ice cream, somebody could say it's something else, and you really have to be accurate. So how do you keep that going for yourself, so you don't, because when you write a lot of characters, how do you do it?
Well, I used to have planners where I had like the Bible thing, but then some unfortunate thing happened and I lost my whole office. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of going to go back to that and redo those because, yeah, it is hard to keep track. Sometimes it's just like you're searching an old manuscript with the names and hoping
Yeah.
that the color comes up at one of the points. Um, but yeah, I used to just really be meticulous on this, and now I have to go back and start my whole planner collection over again, to go through, because I do have I have a couple series, Cecily Taylor series and the
Yeah.
Interconnected Stars in the City, the Star series, the Land Use True Colors, and all that. So now the Bloomington Shore series. So yeah, sometimes, now the only thing that makes it slightly easier is, a lot of the characters in the Stars in the City series are from the hometown Bloomington Shores.
Mhm.
So that keeps that's kind of how they all know each other. That kind of helps. And then they're on the same college campus, those that are in college, because they're all freshmen. That's as old as I get, is freshmen in college. Um, so now I know that campus. I know where everything is. I know like where, um, when they stop serving, which dorms have, the athletes, they can get food all day long. The rest of them can't. I know where the chapel is. It's over by the track. When people get anxious, they always go and walk on the track, and that chapel happens to be right there. They can go in there and pray. And like with Bloomington Shores, where like the bookstore is and stuff like that. So that doesn't make it easier when it's interconnected that
Right.
way, where you can kind of know where everything is. But yeah, that can be, some authors even make like a little map for themselves to know where everything is.
Yeah,
Because some people
well,
are
to know where you're going, right? Because right, and I actually bought, like, a poster board. I was going to do the whole thing of where they are, and then I thought I really am not a good artist. I don't know if this is a good thing for me to do. Was thinking about that, but for me, one of the hardest parts is I sometimes go like, did I give them a last name? Not the primary characters. Sometimes the secondary ones, I'll go, I can't, do they have a last name? I don't want to make one up because I'm not sure if I used one.
Get out of my head. That's what I was doing last night. I'm bringing a character that was in the Cecily Taylor series into the Stars in the City series, because I mentioned a few times, and I'm like, did I ever give her a last name?
I
Like I
know. See,
knew,
that's bad. I think I'm going to have to start giving last names to everybody
yeah, yeah. And then I had
because I couldn't
to,
find it then. I'm looking and I'm reading the book and I'm listening to it on audio and I'm trying to think, did I do this? Because if I use them again, I wanted to know if they had a last name. So it's interesting. You were thinking about, because that's what I think it's best probably now. I'm going to give everybody a last name.
yeah. There was
So,
one funny thing that happened one time where I didn't know anybody with this one first name that I've used for a character. And I had something happen. It's in, Falling for a Star in the City, where there was a picture of her taken, and it was very distinct what she was wearing, the shoes, the bag that she had
yeah.
on. And but it was not a pleasant scene because somebody put a really nasty kind of headline on the blog for it. Well, at that time, I had written it like quite a while before, but the book hadn't come out. I wasn't done writing it. So I go to this Bible study, and there's a girl in the Bible study, and her name is the same as my character. And she walked in the second week, and her shoes and her purse were exactly what I wrote. And I thought nobody would ever believe. I thought, what
Yeah,
am I going to do?
I
Nobody
know.
would ever believe. And if she read it, she would not be happy because, like I said, like it was
Yeah,
like,
that's the thing. Yeah.
and I thought,
I mean,
oh,
there's all kind of these little problems that we have. I mean, and I don't think people realize that. That's why it's good to talk about it sometimes because, you know, when you have a problem, there's some other authors that have the same one.
yeah, yeah, you're not alone in it,
No,
sure.
I don't think so. I think we all, because you're writing a story and then you go, oh, and you're done. And then if you want to use them again, then that's when that happens because then you go, oh my. See, writing a screenplay is pretty good because all you do is write dialogue and you write the initial where they are and everything. And you don't really want to put the description too much, or even I learned a lesson like you don't want to put that they're blonde because if a brunette is reading the script, she might not feel that she's right for the part because she's a brunette and not a blonde or something like that. So early on I learned that. And sometimes with age, you know, I used to put every age, and then after a while, because if you're sending something to a production company and they have somebody that they might want to put in the movie, and it's for a 34-year-old. So if you write down this was a 25-year-old, then a person that could look good and they could look like a 25. So you don't write it because sometimes it gets in their head. But in a book, it's different because people want to know these things. Like
Yeah.
about how old they are, because they're not seeing them unless it becomes a movie. See, because when you're watching it, it's a whole different experience than when you're writing it.
Yeah, and there's a term for it. I can't think of off the bat where some authors in particular like to, and I cannot think of the term, but kind of like people will say like Twilight, like you don't want to give too much description so that the reader can slip into being
Right.
that
A lot of
character.
people like that. They
Yeah,
want to be that character and they don't want it to be so much that they don't fit that description.
right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
can be tricky. That can be
Yeah.
tricky. Some people
Because some people do. I mean, one time when I first wrote one of my sexy books, which I'm not, I enjoyed writing them and I think they were fun. But then, I had changed the cover a few times, and that's why somebody had said to me, "You need to put a man on." I go, "Well, why? It's not his story." So they said, because the people that read it, they might want to look at a good-looking guy and not think of the woman. And
yeah,
I could,
there are
well, if you see it online, I mean, all these books, they have all these gorgeous guys with, great bodies and everything, and they're on a lot of covers.
yeah, there was a publisher I talked to about they wanted to publish a series of mine. And I asked them, I said, well, what are you thinking of for that? And they said, no, definitely they would just want a guy on the cover. And I've
Yeah,
read that before, and I'm thinking, but no, it's my stuff is so character driven. I think sometimes when you have a guy on the cover, it does lean towards people thinking it's going to be a little bit more of a spicier book.
yeah,
Where and
yeah, yeah. Oh,
I
yeah,
felt it
yeah,
was going to
yeah,
be more misleading. And I thought,
yeah.
and they were like, well, their thoughts on it was, who cares? You just want to hook the reader. And I'm thinking, no, I'm
No,
trying to
you
build a
right.
relationship with the
Yeah,
reader so that you don't just buy the book. It's not, to me, it's not a transaction like, okay, it's in the account. It's more like,
right,
I want you
right.
to like these characters and keep wanting to
Well,
be
you
in the
you get to
work.
have the guy if they want him. I mean,
I want them to have the experience. And to me, it wasn't so like,
yeah,
transactional money wise. It was more like, oh, I want you to get into the story and
yeah,
like this and that. And
yeah.
so it was like we were definitely not on the same page with that. And I was like, no, I
But
don't think.
it does sell a lot. But see, I've now added to mine. I'm adding men and women like my books because my reviews were coming in from men. And then I realized, I have a lot of male characters. So I'm putting in either in the description or in the tag words, because a lot of men read books, and it's not, they used to say women were the majority, but there's a lot of guys now, especially on audio and, on an ebook, they read, so I think that's a problem for people.
Yeah.
Where, they discount the fact that you're writing a YA, but why can't a boy read a YA?
Well, people always think that YA is for teenagers, and I when I would go to book signings and stuff, or even now, most of the things that I hear from are people, parents buying it for preteens and adults reading it for themselves.
Yeah. 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 Oh, yes. And that's true. And that's one of the things, if they ask for the age of the books, I mean, for kids, okay, it's okay, but not, you know, you just don't know who your readers are. That's the thing. I don't want to know. I just want them to enjoy the book. I don't care if they're male or female or, I don't. But I realized that by the reviews, their names. And I thought, well, the whole market, I have to just put that in there because maybe they're not seeing some of the books.
Yeah.
But sometimes it takes a long time when you actually start thinking of how your career is and how you really do write. And do you write more men, or do you write, men and women, or do you just write female roles? I mean, I look at all, like for me, because I can't get that out of my head, my screenwriting. So a lot of my thought process comes from that, which is why my books are shorter, because I'm just used to the whole story and not like 10 pages of description. That's what happened. And so I'm better at this now, but I'm much better at dialogue.
Well, in the beginning, that was my intention. I wanted to write for TV.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I could write a book. I thought, oh my gosh, when I was starting out, here I am. I wasn't even in college. I was still in high school when I started writing. And then as I'm going to college, I'm thinking, oh, I've got to at least, finish college before I could.
Yeah.
And then as I was starting to go to these writing conferences and learning more about what the world of screenwriting, how oftentimes people come up with the whole thing, like they get fired off the project, but the screenplay goes on. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, I don't think I can handle that. And
Yeah.
as I was going to more classes and reading more biographies, memoirs, and autobiographies about writers, I was learning that no, it really was a book I wanted, because I always thought too, because I did a little acting in college and stuff, and I thought, well, I would like to act, I'd like to direct, I'd like to produce, I'd like to have my own TV show, I want to write scripts. I mean,
Right. Right.
and then I read about this one author, and that's what she thought. And then one day it hit her that when you're an author, you are the director, you are the producer, you're the casting person.
Yeah.
You can come up with the soundtrack. You are you're acting as you're
Yeah.
creating characters, and you're the script writer. And then she realized that's when she had found her calling, because she wanted to do all those things. And in a book, you can. And that's when it all clicked into place. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, now it makes sense. Because
Well,
when I
that's why independent writing is much better, because you get to say on everything.
Yeah, creative control. That's why you see a lot of big name, like in the music industry. You see,
Yeah.
because that's one thing they
Well,
talked about with George Michael. They said that, he took the big deal. He would have been happier, but he wanted that, the marketing push. But that's what made him so miserable later on. He would have been better with more creative
and
control.
now the younger ones, they really have it down pat. They're controlling their own destiny, which is great for them.
Yeah, of course, it's easier now with the internet too. You can put
That's
out
true.
your
It's
music
very
or
different.
whatever.
Yeah. But
It's
I
very
think,
difficult.
as writers, we are creative, right? And you're producing a book. If you're independently and and independent books are very good. And a lot of people made the decision and to do this. And I do think, years ago they go, "Oh, they can't get a publisher." Well, that's the reason they can't get a publisher, is they can only take so many books. I mean, just that's the reality. It doesn't mean the book is bad. It's just they have in mind they could maybe publish 15 books a year, like if it's a children's book, 20, whatever, an adult, 100 books, whatever it is. That's what they're set out for. So they're not going to publish like 1,000 books.
Yeah,
The
and there's
same
so
as
many
it's not like that.
publishers that are changing their deal so that they can do some stuff on their own
Oh,
too.
I think a lot of people have, I'm pretty sure a lot of people go in, and they don't use their name. Which I'd
Yeah,
like to sometimes do too,
that's really
make up my name, do another
busy.
name, which I tried to do, and then I stopped.
Yeah, that's where I think the indie boom came from, was a lot of traditionally published authors doing like their separate side deals and stuff.
Yeah.
But
I
in
had
the end,
4
all
women
it's
on my
about
show.
story. It all comes back to story.
Right. And yeah.
And I always say to people that the first book you write is going to be the most, well, I shouldn't say the first book you write, because your first book is never good. People on the internet get so mad when people say that, but your first book should not see the light of day. That's just the way it is. It's the test pancake. And most people, if they really are honest, will admit that their first book that they wrote isn't, even if the story is what they published, that book has been through several revisions, like strong revisions.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you're doing with the first one. But I was lucky because
Although sometimes you're better
sophomore
off with the
first,
first one,
you have music
because
people
sometimes
talk about the
if you
sophomore
don't
first
know
one, and they will
much.
say that their second album, didn't do well because they didn't have the time to put into it, to invest in it. So I think with writing is the same thing, especially because a lot of time you don't get a lot of time because they have you doing so much for your first book,
Yeah.
publishers have all these demands. So and people thought that I would really struggle with that, but what they didn't realize is that, because I had so much encouragement from professors and from professional writers I met at
Yep.
conferences where I did critiques like crazy in the beginning, that I had several things written. I just needed help, like going through editing, and then like with the publishers finding editors and what have you. So I didn't have that on my shoulder, the sophomore curse, because I was ready to go. I think had I not, it would have been very daunting to try to like match, when your first book takes off, it's a blessing and a curse, because it could be, where you're paralyzed because your first time getting reviews, you read them, your first book.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily read them for the rest of them. I don't. But for the first one, you are, because you're trying to see like, oh, do people like me? Do people like the story? What do they not like?
See,
It's
I
a,
didn't like when my first book, now my first book that I wrote, I actually think that's one of my strongest books, because the plot, I mean, it was a fiction book, but I put a lot of work into it. Plus I went to, I had like a child that had challenges. And so I went to work at a place just to serve lunch and do that so I could learn about that. So I think for me, that was a strong story. And I think before I knew what I was even doing, I think my stories were strong because I didn't think about anything. I
yeah, because
just wrote them.
like I said, like your first book is the last time that you will write. Once you get
Yeah,
published, is the last time, the first book or the first couple before you're published is the last time that you will write without a
thinking about it.
review
Right,
on your shoulder.
right.
Because
That's
you
true.
suddenly you have expectations from people that you've never met and probably never will meet.
I know.
You're looking at this.
I'm always shocked, to hear when people tell me things that, I love when they talk about my characters to me. That's the most fun. But it's always shocking. And when I read some of the reviews, people really get stories in different ways. So I do enjoy that part of it, to know what they got out of it. And sometimes it's different. Like even with my children's books, it was shocking to me that they said, that I was giving people like a lesson and things. I just wrote the book. I wasn't thinking of, if it was about their attitude or about kids, if it was something kids would really benefit from. I just had a good time writing them. But see,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Now we've got so much, because as independents, we have to go out there and sell it.
Oh, do
And if you don't say exactly the right words, or Amazon decides to, put you in the wrong category, you're kind of like in a bad position.
Well, I remember when just recently, my most recent book was Wishing on a Star in the City, about a teen soap actress going through a breakup with a football player, and then she starts getting to be friends with and dating this hockey player. And she's from a well-known like business family, like the kind of like the Ford family or the Fisher family or something. And she gets this advice from her tycoon business great uncle, Uncle Alfred. And she ends up putting him on her podcast that she has on the side. And then pretty soon he becomes a regular guest on there. And I thought, is this going to go over, this great uncle? Like, I
Yeah.
love those scenes. And I know that like the editors and stuff, they were like into it. And the first review that I got, I of course didn't read because I don't see them, but somebody who I didn't know messaged me on one of my social media things, and I happened to go through, because sometimes there's filters and you don't see them if they're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
yours. And for some reason, that one went through the filter, and they were going on about how much they loved Uncle Alfred, and I was like, oh, thank goodness, like,
Yeah, but because they got it, and you like that. I mean, as
yes,
writers, as we like that, and sometimes people will get like a 3-star, which isn't always bad because then they're writing, well, they enjoyed this, they enjoyed that, they enjoyed this. So, and they, for whatever the reason is, if they gave somebody a 3-star, so it's those stars that drives me crazy because
well, it's like
I just,
Michelin
I don't
restaurant.
like that. I
Yeah,
don't like,
Michelin
yeah,
restaurants, the big reviewers, like a 3 star is like 5 star to the, reviewers. And people don't always realize that, because professional reviewers don't necessarily give 5 stars to things that they
no,
like.
they don't.
They
No,
wait till,
no.
like, like War and Peace, or like I said, restaurant reviewers, like with like your net, like when Net Value,
Right,
a publisher, puts a
right,
book.
exactly. That you're even going to stay in this business because it's
Yeah,
hard. Yeah.
it's different, and people who are readers, they don't. Why would they know what the business is like and stuff? But you really, if you're gonna like be in the business and be creative, you got to kind of leave some of that stuff at the door, because you can't write if you're looking over your shoulder.
That's right. You have to, that's the best advice you can give anybody is right. Is just right. Don't think about all this because that's the problem. You think too much sometimes.
Yeah,
And when you're thinking too much, your creativity goes out the door,
yeah,
and so I think,
especially.
and that's how it is now because there's so, let's just face it, there's so many people writing now. Oh my God.
Yeah, and then when they get with you with branding, because a lot of publishers would say, stay in your lane, pick a genre and stuff like that. And so, and that can be really hard, because I didn't think one of my publishers would do my YA stuff, because I started out with them with upper middle grade. And then
Right.
another place, they said they were open to one of my new adults, but they'd only published my YA. And I was like, oh, because they had always said, no, 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 do not genre hop. But I mean, you see so many big authors doing it now. Of course, maybe some people can get away with it, some can't.
Yeah.
But it's tricky, because for every bit of advice out there, there's somebody that'll say, "Oh no, but that worked for me."
Right.
So
That's exactly that's the point. That's why I have like, I've been doing this for so long and on my shows, that's why the people that I have on, I trust. I usually know the people I have on. Plus, beside that, I, you know, I know that they're good writers because I check, I do look at their books before. I may not get a chance to read everybody's books, but I check out who they are and, what type of person they are and as far as writing goes and what kind of advice they give and things like that because I want people that listen to the show to get the best advice that they can get and not from people that don't know how to write and that are looking to make money from them. They get advice from people like you and all the people that are on my shows because they give good advice because that's what I want people to have is good advice, not bad advice. It bothers me. And there are a lot of people that don't listen either. And you really want to save them money and heartache, but sometimes they don't want to listen.
now, and I will share one other piece of advice, that the internet is forever, because I can't tell you how many times I'll be on a podcast and some interviewer will find something that either I
Yeah.
said or someone said about me like years ago, and they'll be like, oh, and even like people I've interviewed in the past where like the interview wasn't even on my blog anymore, they'll find something and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, how did you know that? And
Yeah. Yeah.
some people really do their research, and like your jaw could be on the ground with some of
Yeah.
the stuff
Yeah.
that they find. So
Well,
be
right.
mindful of what you put out there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And I did put this out, on Facebook the other day, which I think there's something Meta's doing now that I don't know if it's gonna happen or if it is happening where you can pay a certain amount, like $15, I think, and then you can, they will help pull your books out because as we all know, Facebook is not what it was because nobody sees anything. So I don't know if that's the answer. I'm going to see if that'll help for people because I try a lot of things because years ago when you wrote something on Facebook, a lot of people would see it, but now they don't.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of things. You see, if that's why you might see 10 things of people that and they have been, commenting or seeing stuff. After that, some of the people that you think are seeing what you wrote, they don't know. They're not seeing it. So I don't know what happens there. It's not a
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah, well, how I found out a friend of mine died is because the TV station posted about it
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah,
Facebook.
see,
I didn't
yeah,
find out from anybody in his family that posted about it. It was like,
right.
"Oh,
I mean, so I mean, those are the things. There's so many things, but and your emails, just be careful. They just I every day now. I mean, it's really difficult to tell because I myself, even doing this for so long, I go, oh, maybe this sounds good. It could help, and it doesn't. But there's a lot of people out there now that are offering services. And to make your book a success, you go to you're going to Europe, you're going everywhere and making money. If this were easy, this is not easy. So it doesn't happen 1, 2, 3. That's the thing. So try to ask somebody a question. If you're going to, before you pay for something, ask if somebody used them.
yeah."
Because that could be very expensive. And I've told people things and they don't listen. And then afterwards they listen.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Gotta get burned first. You gotta touch the stove and find out it's hot on your own.
yeah. But, and I just want to say one last thing. Okay, I've been doing this for a lot of years, and I want to thank all the people that have been on my show, my guests. They've been terrific, and that's why I keep doing this, because I love this, and I've made friends from people. That's why I'm trying to give you the best shows with the best advice because of that. You need to have good people giving advice.
Yeah.
Not just, and that's what I appreciate all my guests. I'll tell you, this has been the best part because there's so many people that I've met that I never would have met. That's the good thing about the internet. You meet people that could be friends for a lifetime,
Yeah.
so that's a good thing. So be careful about what you do, but also, you know, make some friends on there that can help you. Because I've had a lot of help from people. I listen, I take notes. You do the same too. You know, so tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me at KrystenLindsay.com, and Kristen is with a Y. And my paperbacks are all over, and my ebooks are on Amazon. All my books are in Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read them for free.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. That's why I'm putting some of my books back, And any information you want on me, you can go to MarshaCasperCook.com or MichiganAvenueMedia.com. And I'm in the process of redoing my site in a slower way, because we haven't put any of the photos on, but we're just, I do believe in websites. I think, you need them. It's like a place where just people, where they can find you, and see what you have. I mean, there's so many people, how to figure out ways to get yourself out there without making yourself upset. That's what people need to do out there, is don't make yourself upset, just write good stories.
Yep.
That's
It's
what we
all
do.
about the story in the end.
It is at the end. You have to be proud of what you've written and say, this is the best I could do. I like this story because I wrote it. It's a story. And just as long as if somebody likes it, that makes us feel good.
Yep.
We all like that.
Yeah, because once you put it out into the world, it's not yours anymore, it's theirs.
Right. But it's true. And we don't know who our right readers are. That's the exciting part. You don't know. It's not like family members, it's just people. And when you get a review from someone you don't know and they love your characters and your book, I can't think of any author that's not happy about that. That's what we write. We write, but we also want you to like the stories and the characters. So that's it for us. And you'll have a new book and I'll have a new book and we'll see how that goes. I don't know when it'll be done, but I wanted it done already. But I say that every time. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, this will be
I,
number 15 for me that I'm working
yeah,
on.
yeah. And I never know how long it's going to take me. I always say, oh, yeah, I can get this one out fast.
Yeah,
It's
me
not,
too.
not happening.
No, I had it happen once where I was able to do it, but that publisher was like on me every day. Like I remember there was one day I was like, well, like I have 60 pages right now. The next day, like, is it done? I'm like, did you not read the email from the day
Right.
before that for 60 pages? Like, hello, what do you, did you think?
Oh, yeah, it's like I'm telling you, it's like you can't, some people write really fast. And I'm a fast-paced person, but not when I write.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I can write fast, but I mean, for me to like it, that's another story.
yeah, there was somebody that said that they only wrote 4 books in 1 year, and I was like, "Only?"
Only I know. And every year I
Okay.
go like, okay, I'm going to write a lot of books this year, and then that's not happening. I write the best. Let's put it this way: I write the best story I can. I make the best stories that from my characters that they'll give me,
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not that giving. They have
Yeah,
to
well, time takes as much
takes
time as it
time.
takes. Yeah. These characters can't be rushed sometimes.
All right. So everybody, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Next week, next Tuesday, I have a show with Delta James, and I'll be posting all the shows out. So, and thanks again. It's been a great show. It's good to have you back. You haven't been out on my show for a while.
I know, it's good to be back. I'll have to do this
I know.
again.
Okay. Very soon. Bye bye. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye bye.